I have a couple of things that people requested that we talk about today. The first thing is 2021 sponsorships. And before we kind of start the conversation, we wanted to ask you all a couple of poll questions. The first one is, have you released your 2021 sponsorship perspective? That also, I know in parts of the country call it your marketing plan. If you can just mark yes or no so we can get an idea. And then the second question is, what is your anticipated budgeted sponsorship income? And that's for 2021. Is it the same as 2020, less or more? Just so we can get a general idea. So it looks like we're split between some people have released their sponsorship packages and some have not. And then budgeting as well seems to be pretty split between what you've budgeted previously and about between 0 and 25% than last year. And we even have one that's budgeting more than last year. So I'd like to have you guys share kind of what does your sponsorship package look like? What are your boards talking about? Are you talking about changing your benefits? Are you talking about changing packages? Are you releasing them at different times?
Hey, Crystal, it's Vishnu from Southeast Florida.
Hey, Vishnu.
We just released ours probably about 2 weeks ago. We had a big conversation probably about 3 or 4 weeks before we actually issued the final. And one of the conversations we had is about whether we needed to do adjustments and give credits for stuff for this year that we weren't able to do. We're actually pulling off our golf tournament next week, Friday, which was kind of a big deal for us. So we've taken Minnesota, we've taken others that have shared what they've done. These calls are fabulous because it's put us in connection with our committee chair, got to be on calls with them, and we learned a lot. And so we're going to go ahead and pull this off. We're going to have 128 golfers. We struggled to find a golf course, and we basically took over the golf course for the whole day. Is about the way we had to do this to meet all the COVID requirements and everything. But we're going to pull off, and that's our biggest thing. So we went to a bunch of the chapter sponsors. We have about 30 a year between, you know, diamond to the platinum to gold that are our big 3 levels. And in our chapter size, we're about 500 members. They're paying anywhere between, say, $1,500 to $4,000 a year to sponsor events through the year. And we went to a number of them and had that frank conversation about whether they're looking for anything back, because throughout the year, we'd only received 2 emails from chapter sponsors asking about if we were making adjustments. And that was it. The other 28, we didn't hear anything from. And when we approached them, every one of them basically said, look, we understand the way things are. We're not looking for anything back. We're not looking for a discount for next year. Just do what you need to do. And we're happy to support the chapter. We've actually picked up a couple sponsors in the last month, a couple business partners that were not active with our chapter before have now joined and actually become a chapter sponsor. So we've actually, we're planning 2021 to be the same as it was for 2020. We're not doing any discounts. We're not doing anything any different. Same sponsorship levels. We plan to have all the same activities and everything. So that's us.
Awesome. That's great news. Are the rest of you having similar experiences? Or are they very different experiences?
So I'll go. This is Nick.
Hey, Nick.
San Francisco Bay Area. So, you know, our lockdowns are more strict than I think anywhere. And, you know, we're projecting that it's going to be, you know, pretty strict until there's a vaccine and the vaccine gets distributed. So what we did is we said, everything's going to be virtual until the second half of 2021. So we're doing discounts, I think a 50% discount on sponsorships for our virtual events that are going to be in the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, we're back. We're going to do our, you know, we've moved our spring tee to August. We're going to do our, you know, golf and all that good stuff. And the problem is just between now and that moment in the future, we're trying to figure out how do we do a virtual holiday party? How do we do a virtual, we're going to do a reverse trade show. We're going to do that as a Zoom speed dating. So that's where we are. So it's a lot more strict with us.
Yeah. What is the feedback from the sponsors been with having just virtual options for sponsorship?
I think they're okay with it. They understand, and they like that we're giving them a discount. a lot of them just, didn't ask for any refund for 2020, just as a, supporting the chapter.
Sure.
We realized they did not get the same value that they normally get with in-person events. So we appreciate that support, but I think for 2021, we want to adjust our pricing down to keep them in.
Great. Okay. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah. This is Mark. I'm from Southern Arizona chapter.
Hey, Mark.
Hi. Say, we went ahead and had our trade show as part of our golf event. We did it in the parking lot. We social distance. We skipped every other parking space so that the vendors had plenty of room to social distance. In our state, we're required not to hold events larger than 50 people gathering at a time. But as we put this in the parking lot, we were able to have people come staggered, and so there was never more than 50 people in an area at one time. But then we had the golf event immediately afterwards, and that worked out equally well as we have our own golf course, so it was easier for us to put the people out on the golf course. Everybody had a great time, and I think more than anything, they just enjoyed getting together. So afterwards, it was up to the restaurant and able to social distance. We had, in our state, we can have up to 10 people at a table at the restaurant. No social milling around or that kind of thing, but it worked out really well. And none of our vendors asked for a refund either for the last year.
Oh, that's great.
It's looking like this next year is going to be equally good as we're starting to get into virtual education and virtual meetings for our lunch meetings as well.
Okay. Mike, I know you had sent me, Mike Crew had sent me some questions that you were hoping to get some input on. Did you want to share some of those things?
Well, I wasn't going to address the questions, but since I did kind of put this in front of you, I thought I would share where our chapter is. So, and actually, we can just play Vishnu's speech back because it's the same.
Same.
Truthfully, yes. And I was gratified to hear that because
good.
I've been concerned. It's been a tough year to be the president of the chapter and lots of challenges as we've all faced. So
yeah, this definitely isn't what any of you signed up for.
Not what I signed up for.
No.
But we got through it and we've done pretty well at that.
I agree.
So to answer your poll question, we just sent out our metals, we call them precious metal sponsors. They're business partners and management companies. And we have 88 of them at various levels, and they pay between $975 and $3,850, depending on which level they want to participate at. So we just sent out our package. We added a few things into it that were new this year, like publishing the logos of our platinum sponsors on the cover of our chapter magazine. So we tried to add a couple of other virtual non-contact things in because truthfully, we don't know what's going to happen next year. We were lucky this year in that we have two big events. We have an education seminar at the beginning of the year, and our golf event is tomorrow, actually. Got my
Good luck.
crossed. Yeah, got my fingers crossed. Actually, we're in pretty
It'll be great.
We're in pretty good shape on the golf event, but we made some pretty drastic changes to it. We play on a 27-hole golf course. We cut the attendance in half from 228 down to 114 players. And we restricted the number of sponsors that could be at each hole at their, most of them set up little cabana tents, and we restricted them to 2 persons per hole. So there's a lot less traffic. And to make up for the sponsorship fee for this particular event, we reduced the fee by 50% because we felt our sponsors had coughed up a lot of money this year and did not get the in-person contacts that they had planned because the original COVID quarantine took us out in March, and that was our first big luncheon. So the first big luncheon got canceled, and everything after that did too.
For those of you who have cut the pricing for individual sponsors, like you just said, Mike, by 50%. Is that putting a strain on your budget, or are you finding that you're having less expenses?
Well, we only did it for the golf event. And so
Okay.
basically we charged the golf committee with developing a break-even budget, and 50% fee with half as many players, given everything got scaled down, gives us a break-even budget for that event. So we're just trying to get out of that without losing money, and give the sponsor something back for this year, which we have struggled so much with. Next year's package is the same money. We rolled it out at the same level, and we've already gotten quite a few commitments to be sponsors again. So we don't expect there's going to be a lot of fallout. Much like Vishnu, we only had, or well, everybody for that, like Nick and everybody, we only had a couple of sponsors grouse about how much they paid. Nobody actually asked for their money back. They just kind of said, hey, what are we doing about this? It's, it's not what we signed up for. And we added a lot of virtual art. Chapter CET did a super job of coming up with virtual events and ways for business partners to network with management companies. We had, as a matter of fact, we have this thing called the triple C's. It's like a coffee clutch kind of thing where business sponsors get to present during a short virtual meeting. We had one every couple of weeks. Today was the last one, and we had 38 managers attend that. So that's
Great.
a chance for 4 or 5 vendors to get in front of 38 managers and talk.
So it's kind of like a sponsored
That's all it
content
is.
type thing. Yep.
That's all it
Sales.
is. It's each one of them gets to give a little pitch, 3-minute elevator speech, and then we throw the floor open for managers to ask questions. And there's dialogue about different things that they've done and what can they do, and they all give away some kind of little trinket or reward to the managers, and works out great.
Great. I'm curious, is there anyone on the call that is concerned about not reaching their sponsorship level? And if you don't want to speak up to the whole group, feel free to private chat me, and I'll ask the question, because I think this is a good brain trust of people that can maybe give you some ideas of how to overcome some challenges.
Well, I might mention one more thing, Crystal.
Of course,
Our
go ahead.
board personally called every sponsor twice this year.
I love that. That personal connection is huge.
We divided up the 88 members into each one of us took, I think, 8 or 10, and directly contacted them. And we think that helped out a lot, because it gave them an avenue to tell us what they were thinking, and tamp down their frustration a little bit, I think.
Yeah, Rich from South Carolina also posted in the chat that their CED has been touching each sponsor directly to reach out to them to negotiate packages for 2021. So again, a different touch point through the staff.
Surprisingly, Crystal, we had, this is New Jersey, we had a meeting with our ultimate sponsors. We have 3 tiers, and the ultimates are the highest, and they do pay a substantial amount each. We are giving a credit to each of the tiered sponsors proportionate to their sponsorship level, about 20% each going into 2021. But we had a call, myself and our CED had a call with our ultimate sponsors, about 20. And surprisingly, when we asked, we put the question out, basically what would you like to see improved? And we held our breath. There was no answer. I mean, surprisingly, they were all very positive and looking forward to continuing with the chapter. Interestingly enough, we did get pushback from 2 of our sponsors, but not on that top tier level. They seem to be very dedicated to the chapter, dedicated to, rolling over, understanding the risks of 2021. But we don't anticipate a tremendous drop off. We did have, a leveling off of revenue this year, but it actually, because we only held 1 in-person event all year for 2020. So actually we came out a little bit ahead, not wanting to, but we did. And then going into next year, we'll see how it goes. But having that ultimate partner commitment for us is huge.
Yeah, I think, the saving grace with not having the in-person is a lot of those expenses like hotel rental, room rental, food and beverage, AV, a lot of that went away in 2020. So I think that did save a lot of people. 2021, I think, is going to be a test. I'm feel very good about your feedback so far, about being optimistic about your sponsors. In probably January, we're talking about surveying the chapters to see, again, kind of like what we just asked you, where your sponsorship's coming in to what you anticipated, to get a gauge of, where chapters need some assistance. I've been starting to say we're all going to come out of this a little broken, bruised, and beat up a little bit, but we're all going to make it through it, and we're going to figure out a way to do that. And so again, if any of you are struggling, feel free to talk in this group or reach out to any of us to see what we can do to assist you. But that is our ultimate goal, to all make it through, even if we're a little scarred in the end. All right, let's move to events. We've kind of flipped that in through this conversation, but I want to ask you all another poll question to see, and I know this varies hugely based on your government restrictions in your state, but we're curious as to what your plan is for the first quarter of 2021. Are you going to be holding all in person, all virtual, some kind of hybrid, which would be part in person, part virtual, or a combination of the above? So far, it looks like virtual is the winner, with a couple people doing in person and then some people doing a combination of those things. Okay, so what challenges are you guys facing with making those decisions? I mean, I'm sure in person, following different regulations, hybrid, I know. Well, I don't think anybody here just put exclusively hybrid. I know that's a challenge that we're looking at, moving forward, is doing hybrid. The costs involved of having both in person and virtual is a challenge.
Hey, Crystal, it's Vishnu. I'll tell you, state by state, I'm sure this varies greatly, and I was fascinated because Nick is my diametric opposite, basically logistically.
Yes.
California, plus Democratic state versus Republican state, and I bring that up not to be political, but just because of of how incredibly different the approach has been. We have not really had any in-person events. And our golf tournament is going to be our first in-person event that we've had since March. And we haven't even tried. I mean, we tried, I think we talked about trying a breakfast back in June and forget it, it just blew up because the state of Florida went from 400, 500 cases a day at the end of May when it was locked down to then opening back up, and we were at 15,000 cases a day at the height by the time we got to some point in June. And now we're down to, I think, maybe just under a couple thousand every day. But there's still like 100 and some people who die every single day that are reported on the news every single day. And then there was an event that I was invited to moderate. It was going to be a live event. It was the first one that we're going to try to do. We were supposed to do it today's Wednesday, Tuesday, last night. And at the last minute, I got a call yesterday morning, and the person who was putting it together, where they had 40 people who had signed up for this event. It was continuing education. It was a panel discussion. We got it certified by the state so we could do it for CEU. They were down to 12 managers who had agreed to come, that they could personally confirm. And out of the 6 business partners that were going to be on the panel, only 2 want to participate. And they were still going to try to go through with it, but basically everybody was given the option to attend or not attend. And she pointed to the president getting COVID as being kind of the change in the mood here, that all of a sudden the world dropped off, where there was a positivity and everything. So I think to the question of when, I would have told you 3 weeks ago, it was looking good. We were going to do our golf tournament. We were going to have that event. And then we were going to slowly try to, have socially distant, mixers and things like that, limit the number of people and do things like that. At this point, we're not even touching anything before January outside of the golf tournament. Our holiday party is supposed to be in December. I think we've accepted that's not going to happen. So we're going to think about maybe January, at the end of January, if we do a breakfast, but that's probably the earliest we would come back.
Okay.
Crystal, Katie
Yes.
from Southern California, Orange County. And like you said, I'm not getting political, but we do have a warden here in California that's got us almost under lockdown. He's just not letting everybody open up yet. So our decision has been pretty much based on the parameters that we can work within. We're going to be virtual for the first quarter of the year. However, we're making plans to go in person if we can. So we're going to try to have our first big live event in April, and we're just crossing our fingers. But it seems like the business partners still are the ones that want out of the cages, and managers and the management companies are a little bit more resistant.
Definitely. I've heard that a lot, Katie, is that the business partners are, you know, really pushing to get in front of the managers, and you know, the managers are less inclined to do so. How I've heard also a lot of business partners being resistant to virtual events, and how are you guys handling that?
Well, we're getting really creative. We did a bingo a couple weeks ago, and we had a great turnout. In the beginning, like everyone was so excited about Zoom, and the numbers were really high and participation was great.
Mhm.
And then it just came to a screeching halt. So for the most part, we've converted all of our luncheons into virtual, and the numbers are nowhere near what they were in person. But, you know, if it's a 50% drop, okay, I can live with that. So that's been good. But for the most part, we haven't really done any social events virtually. Education is still going virtually. We've done a few classes, and the numbers were okay. I mean, they were better than I thought they would be. But we're all learning, and everybody's kind of testing the waters. And honestly, I think people, I can only speak for California, because it seems like we're a completely different animal than any of you guys. It's just really crazy. There's a lot of fear driven by the media, and I don't know if it's politically driven or what, but I think that has a lot to do with people's ability to get out of their houses and feel comfortable, and just kind of like try to get their lives to a little bit of normalcy without using the word normalcy over and over.
What, you know, I think regardless of where you are, as things start to come back, and back I use lightly because I don't know that there is a going back, as we move forward, perhaps, how can we help business partners? And I recognize some of you on this call are business partners, adapt to having to do some of their networking virtually, because I feel like there's some business partners that might be being left behind for waiting it out. And I don't think there is a waiting out at this point, because even when we move into a different type of normal, I believe the virtual is going to always be part of it. So has anybody done anything to kind of help their business partners learn to market virtually?
Well, if I may, Crystal, interestingly
Mike.
enough, as I mentioned, we've had these programs, the chapters had these programs, but we also have some, I don't know what the right word to use is, marketing cooperatives, I guess. I think that's right, where business partners have gotten together and pooled their resources to create events that are outside the chapter, but everybody that's there is a chapter member. So, and so those groups have come up with some kind of creative things. They've they've scheduled a talent night. They've had some bingo events, and where they used to take they would take 25 or 30 managers to lunch as an organization, as a group, okay, from different management companies. Now they're spending that money on prizes for the managers at these events instead of buying lunches. And they're giving away some pretty nice prizes, which are drawing the manager's attention to some extent. So they've kind of helped themselves out in that aspect, and we haven't tried to compete with them at that level. So,
Do you think that affects the chapter?
yeah, it's always been a sore spot with the chapter's leadership or management, because it's competing for resources and attention, and we recognize that. Then I wanted to mention one other thing. We took a survey, I'm going to say June maybe, and asked everybody what kind of events they would attend, and overwhelmingly people told us they did not want to come to events, and that's the part that was brought up earlier about managers not wanting to come to things. Business partners want to do it, and you know.
That'd be interesting to do it again, Mike. And I don't know if people are doing this periodically, but I feel like people's attitudes are changing, over time. And so for those of you that are doing that, and if you're not, you may want to think about it. It might be something worth doing every 2 to 3 months, to see when they start to feel that change.
Well, I'm thinking we're going to do it again either at the end of this year or in January, and see where people's heads are about, because things change every week. But
yeah,
we did one thing that somebody else mentioned. We took our education seminar, which is our second largest event, and moved it to August to be, hopefully, to be sure, knock on some wood, that in person will be back, because it's such a lucrative and a popular event for us. It draws over 100 managers, and that's a big turnout for a class. So,
Mike Trademan, I'm sorry, just one second. I think Mike Trademan, your hand was up.
Good morning, Crystal. As I said last month, for those that were on the call, our chapter in Southern California hired a professional marketing or speaker who actually trains TED Talk people that actually go up on the stage and do TED Talks. And she gave a 1-hour seminar, which we paid for, to our business partners on how to market their company better on Zoom. We got some of the people from CAI headquarters, including Crystal was there. But I have the link on that, and I'd be happy to send it to anybody that wants to see it. Just either do it through Crystal or email me, and I'll be happy to send it to you. You can watch it, and then you can forward it to the business partners if you want, because what we found was a lot of our business partners weren't comfortable sponsoring virtual events because they weren't really good at marketing their company in a 30-second or 1-minute Zoom. They were uncomfortable doing that, or they didn't know how to do it. So we hired this trainer to try to help them. And she has offered to give free 30-minute sessions to any of our business partners based on this. So, and a number of them have taken advantage of it.
Is that a link that you can put in the chat, Mike?
If
not, maybe you can email it to me.
If you want to send me your email on chat, I'd be happy to send it to you after the call. How's that?
Perfect. Yeah. So if anybody's interested, go ahead and put your email in the chat for Mike, and he'll send that to you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Ed had his hand up. You want to go ahead, Ed?
Thank you, Crystal.
Sure.
I have to start and say, what the heck? We're here in Michigan. Recently, we've had the Supreme Court declare that the sweeping restrictions imposed by our governor that have been in place for this year were unconstitutional. And they're sorting out what that all means for different actions that took place, were supposed to have taken place, and so on during the course of the year. And actually, we just got something this afternoon regarding a raft of legislation that we expect will be passed that will tidy those things up. But the other thing that happened was the FBI arrested a number of people who were pursuing a plot to kidnap the governor and take her over to Wisconsin and try her for treason. So it's not been business as usual every day.
Not at all.
And we're still here. I think it's all still working. I'd really like to bring something to your attention that someone shared that described our experience as though we are designing the aircraft while we are flying it. And I think that just sums it up. Where are we? In Michigan, because of the severity of the restrictions and the length of the restrictions, I think that you have a populace that understands and recognizes the needs for the restrictions. They're used to it. And so, you know, people are okay with that. So when restrictions were lifted because they declared the governor's conduct unconstitutional, you didn't have, you know, the gates swing open and everybody rush out and declare it's normalcy again, because I think people appreciate that it's not. I would echo the sentiment that there appears to be a difference between managers and business partners. Managers have, in my experience, showed a reluctance to get together in person. A lot of property managers just are saying, no, we won't do it. Whereas you certainly can see the energy behind the business partners wanting to move back to normal. What that means to us, I think we'll find out next month. We're going to get together with Kelly and we're going to look at developing a strategic plan for next year. And we'll be looking at all the lessons that we've learned. And I think everybody who participates in these sessions for the guidance that you've afforded to me and to us here in Michigan, it certainly has been very, very helpful. We'll see what we can make of it next year. My goal continues to be to look at the general restrictions and to just pick out any way you can, small, medium, or large, to bring people back together live. Our golf outing was successful in that regard. And I continue to believe that, you know, virtual is essential, it's necessary, but it's not where we want to be. So we're going to continue in our strategic planning to look, what can we do if it's going to be a hybrid presentation, because some people are comfortable getting together. We've seen that, it works. We just had a large meeting this week, a couple hours north of here, in a movie theater. Because of the relaxation of restrictions, they were allowed to occupy them. It wasn't, I'm sorry, it was a stage theater, but they could accept 1/2 of the occupancy. It was well attended, and we're looking to those kind of things as guidance for how we can bring it together in person and be positive and encourage people that you can observe the restrictions and we can make this happen sooner than later. And so our membership, we met our goals early, and we're not seeing a drop off in support from our business partners. We haven't had requests for refunds. We're having this week a virtual session that would have been presented in Traverse City, what we call up north here, as kind of a regional presentation. I'll be watching that to see how the participation shakes out, because here, unlike, say, California, where you have a number of chapters operating, in Florida, Michigan is one big chapter, and so that kind of regional sense that people want to protect their turf or be represented or what have you, how does that play out when we're going to do a virtual thing that would have been regional but will play across the state? We'll find out, and we'll be watching for that.
Okay. Nick, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, so I feel like we're kind of dancing around, the diagnosing what's going on with the business partners. So if I try to put myself in the shoes of a business partner, and
Nick is the CEO of a management company. If you don't, if others don't know, just to be so they know who you are.
Right, but if I'm imagining what's going through the heads of our business partners, It's great to have your logo on the event flyer, and maybe it's great to have your name mentioned, you know, on the Zoom event as one of the sponsors. But the biggest value for the business partners is face-to-face with the managers. That's where they can say, you know, hey manager, what construction projects do you have going on? You know, or what bank are you using? Who do you use for collections? That, you know, that's where they're closing new biz.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we keep everybody keeps saying, oh, well, managers aren't that interested in getting face-to-face, but the business partners want to. That's the reason. So we got to focus on creating the opportunities for, you know, one-on-one with the Zoom, whether it's in breakout rooms or, you know, we're doing the reverse trade show to try to get that one-on-one. That's the part of the value that the business partners want is that one-on-one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. That's the challenge. That we've been hearing that too. There's some of you on this call have either helped plan or participated in some virtual trade shows over the last few months, and that is the biggest question that's been coming out is how do we get people to participate with our exhibitors? And I know there's been many things tried across the country. I'm not sure that we're ready to say anything is like the be-all end-all success, but those of you that have had a virtual trade show with exhibit booths, how are you engaging or encouraging your attendees to participate with your exhibitors?
I can chat if you want, Crystal. Hi.
Hi, Steve. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I came in late, so if I'm picking up the tail end of discussions and I repeat again, just say, Rosamond, be quiet. And
okay, I'll do that. I'm sure you'll be fine. Go ahead, Steve.
I must tell you, it is a big problem. We had this discussion last week about it. Here's the difficulty on the trade shows, and I'm not talking necessarily my chapter, it was another chapter. We found that when we were one of the exhibitors as well, I reached out to the managers I know and they came in because they're friends of mine. But I can tell you a lot of the vendors complained because they said, you're a manager and you're going through, you can see the list, unless you specifically go into this breakout room, their attitude is, I'm listening to the seminar during the breaks, I'm just going to go and get a cup of coffee and put it on, you know. So they did not get people coming into their booths. It's not like in a normal one where people are walking around and sort of stuck in that location.
You can be like, hey, Joe, how's it going? You don't have that opportunity in a virtual setting.
And you can't reach out and grab them either. You know, you
Right.
can't say, come on over here, I want to chat to you, because they have to obviously come in. So that was a real concern to them. What we have found extremely effective is the sponsors get a 30-second slot in the beginning. They do a gift at the end, so people stick around. They get a list of who attended and they can email afterwards. But I don't know, this virtual trade show has not been effective for a few of the chapters involved in it. Just because they just, you know, the time they just, I find the managers, you know, are focused on the meeting, but then step out and do something else during the downtime. So unless somebody's got some other great ideas, we've struggled with that concept.
Any of the managers on the call, I know we have some CEOs and some managers as well. Are there things that would make you want to go in those booths, or things that have made you want to go in those booths for virtual trade shows?
Crystal, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
We were worried about the trade show kind of format. We don't have one, but we were concerned about that. And that's why we created this, the 3 C's thing. It's colleagues, clients, and customers is what the 3 C's stand for. And as I mentioned earlier, the nice thing about it was today was the last one, but it put like 5 business partners, not in a room, but in the Zoom call with 35 managers today. And that's a pretty good contact ratio where they can talk freely among each other. So that worked for us this year.
We did that, Michael. So we tried that. So what we did was we had this rotation. So the sponsors sat in their virtual room, and then we rotated, I think it was 10 people into each group, and I think we had 3 minutes per, to be with each vendor, and the vendor did this little pitch and a discussion back and forth. I know from a legal perspective as a lawyer, it was nice to see people, but it wasn't effective because when in the real world, if they got a legal question, they're going to call you aside and say, hey, Steve, what do you think? So they weren't going to discuss privileged communication about legal issues, but that was for us. For other vendors, it may be different. The only difference we found is that they sort of give like a little pitch, and then there's this quiet time, they said, where they're just sort of hanging out there, and unless they know them socially, there wasn't much communication back and forth, and then in a mid-sentence, they get sucked out into the next group.
Well,
So it's a challenge. It really is.
Yeah, it is. The thing that struck me, and because I'm the chapter president, I just basically sat back and watched, was when a manager would talk to one of the business partners and say, well, you did 3 paving projects for me and they all worked out great. And there's managers from other companies listening to that. And, I mean, that's a golden reference right there from your peers.
Yeah, that's great value. That endorsement is superb.
So it sounds to me like some of the sessions that have worked best is perhaps creating smaller sessions, with intentional ways to create engagement. Some of you have mentioned reverse trade shows, and I know some chapters do them, some chapters don't. Can anybody speak to how that works, how they've set that up on a virtual setting? Go ahead, Nick.
I can give it a go. So it's similar to what was described earlier, except what we found is more effective is have the managers stay in their own breakout room, and we make the vendors rotate through. So it's like a speed dating format. So, vendors get their 5 minutes and then they move to the next room with a manager.
So is it just one business partner that rotates to each room, or do you have multiple, like Mike was saying?
No, it's multiple.
Multiple, okay.
So they're, constantly cycling through.
Got it, okay.
That speed dating concept works great. I know some management companies have done that, where they invite vendors who sponsor and they get 3 minutes or 5 minutes with each manager to sort of talk about what they do. I just don't know how that works. We haven't done it virtually because it would be more from the management perspective than necessarily from the chapter's perspective. But I just don't know how vendors, if there's 3 or 4 vendors and they've only got 5 minutes, loud mouths override the other people and don't get enough time with the manager. So I practically, I just don't know how some vendors would feel. Do they get enough time with that manager? And one-on-one would just be overwhelming, I'm sure, time-wise.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. How are we doing on time here? 2:46. So other topics that you guys that are on your minds that you'd like to get input from your peers?
Crystal, I'd like to ask a quick question of the rest.
Great.
Just one of the things we were curious about, where we've seen tremendous support from the business partners, and nobody's been really asking back and willing to participate and commit. I can't remember who it was mentioned earlier that they were able to hit their membership target for the year early on, and they've kind of held tight. I think it was Michigan that made
I think it was Michigan as well.
Yeah. Now, in our chapter, we broke 500 members for the first time at the end of last year. And in the first quarter, we picked that up a little bit. I think we got to like 512. And I think what we've been equally surprised and pleased with is that we are within 2% of that number, our all-time high, basically, 9 months, 8 months, 7 months into this pandemic. So we've been really pleased. I'm just curious, is everybody else seeing that same level of retention of the actual members for the chapter, where if you've either stayed flat or you've only lost a couple points?
Crystal, we're
ahead,
pretty
Mike.
close. We're pretty close to the same level, plus or minus a few, but we haven't seen a huge membership. Is not our big issue. Our big issue is the sponsorships and the business partners getting the value out of their sponsorship. It's the revenue that we're most concerned about. But the membership has done you know, a lot of our membership are full boards. They vote once a year. You know, they're not going to come and go for the most part. So membership hasn't been an issue for us. It's been more the business partners.
I can tell you overall, nationally, we've stayed pretty stable, down no more than, I think 4% at any time during the pandemic. We've definitely started to come back with our retention rate as well as the number of new members per month. We budgeted very conservatively for July through December. So we'll see how that pans out. So far, we're doing pretty good with that. The chapters, you know, we look at all the chapters every month, kind of where we are with numbers, and it ebbs and flows, and that's true nationally too. It's kind of the graph kind of goes like this. You can't really see my finger, but up and down, you know, in different chapters. So we've seen some that have struggled in different months, and then we've seen some that have really done well. I think it partially depends too on what's going on in the state as far as lockdowns and things like that, I think do affect the numbers. And then of course, what you're offering, you know, what kind of programming you're offering. Are you still able to provide value to the members and the business partners? Any other individual chapters have any feedback on where you're seeing your membership numbers?
Yeah, I just went and looked mine up to see.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're through September. We're down 52 members from our high of 831, which is about a 6% loss right now. But as you mentioned, Crystal, the numbers go up and down every month, which I've never really understood. But
well, I'll tell you,
still well within the range of where we would normally be.
I'll tell you why they go. One reason that they go up and down every month is because of, especially with boards with their voting and, you know, cutting checks and stuff, it's not an instant transaction for like an individual person. So if their check or their credit card payment doesn't come in by the last day of the month, they fall off and then they come back. And so that kind of delays it a little bit sometimes, where you see the drop and then you'll see a comeback.
Oh, I just thought it was a bunch of managers not paying their bills.
Sometimes, but they usually figure it out, and you know, we call them and they rejoin.
Well, anyway, our number's like right in the middle of where it would be any other time. It's not at the low, it's not at the high. So
yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, if we only lose 6% of our members, that would be great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And it's actually only a couple less than it was last year for the same month.
Right.
So we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Hey, Crystal, this is Mike. Like Steve, I came in a little late. I was on a local chapter Zoom. Has any chapter had in-person events, either educational or social, in the country?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, absolutely.
Not the golf outings. I understand the golf outings, but
Mike, I'm teaching tomorrow for Inland Empire, CAI Inland Empire chapter in person. Little unsettled about it, but I volunteered to speak when I did. But I don't know what the turnout will be like and how many people they get, but we are in person. This is the first one. I can tell the rest of California hasn't had in person. This is the other.
Yeah, we canceled our October events last minute. It was terrible because really we're trying to interpret the governor's and the county's restrictions, and everybody knows we're pretty restricted out here. But we've recently had several of our attorneys interpret the current, and we went to the state and asked for, you know, a finer understanding. And what the state's told us in writing is that if we hold a chapter event that supports, in our case will be CLAC, you know, the California Legal
Legislative Action Committee.
Legislative Action Committee. If we support a cause, we can have events both indoor and outdoor, you know, with volume restrictions, of course, and social restrictions and masks, but we can't have them. We can legally get together and have them. So we're gonna try in November. We're gonna try a few and see. The real key is who'll come. You know, if we can get, we have a lot of people that want to, including managers that really want to get together. We had about 52 people register for a social event, Corks for Clack, we call it, you know, wine with clack. And 53 people registered, but then we canceled it because of the legal risk. And then we're now past that. We're gonna try it November. So Steve, you can come down and drink wine with us, hopefully.
Absolutely. You know, Mike, it's interesting because I was in the desert on the weekend, and it's interesting because a lot of places have opened up, especially outdoors, and with the weather now changing for you guys, it's going to be fabulous to have events.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do outdoor events in the desert, which would be perfect. This one, I think, is indoors. I'm not certain. So it's going to be interesting. And no doubt on the next call, I'll report back, or I'll be quarantining, one or the other. No, not quarantine.
In fact, we've got our awards. Our biggest event of the year is our awards dinner. And that has been moved a couple of times, but is now going to be in March of next year, and we're going to do that outside. We found a place outside that can hold,
fantastic,
you know, a couple of hundred people, and pretty far apart from each other. But you know, and the venue is the other thing. Is be real careful about your venues. But we don't want the police to come and shut us down while we're meeting.
No, there's some chapters around the country that have had some in-person events, and I think we're going to see more of that, especially in states that are beginning to get cooler weather where outdoors is not possible. Places like Michigan and Minnesota and Illinois and places like that, New York, that they're having events in person, but they're limiting the number of people. And I've seen pictures on social media where they have like one person per 6-foot table, prepackaged foods, you know, masks, all of that stuff to keep it in check. So I wouldn't say a lot of chapters, but maybe a handful have had those. All right, guys, we're running towards the end of time here. I wanted to give you one reminder. Typically in October, we have our annual CED retreat, which is an opportunity for our executive directors to come to CAI's headquarters, and we talk about operational things related to the chapter. The staff gets the opportunity to meet the executive directors and vice versa. Obviously, we're not having that in person, but we are having a virtual event. I encourage you to remind your CEDs to sign up, even if they can't come to the whole thing. We have it spread out over the course of the last week in October. So we hope that your CED is able to join for at least part of it. It's like this, where they have the opportunity to share a lot of things with their fellow executive directors and hopefully bring back good ideas to your chapter. Other than that, I want to make sure that we stay timely and respect your time as well. So I appreciate everybody joining today. As a reminder, we have continued resources online on our website, both public information and through our discussion forums and online resources. So feel free to use those to get additional information, and feel free to reach out to the chapter talk with us individually. I am going to be changing our November date because it falls on Veterans Day and our office is closed that day. So do look for a change, a time change for that. I'll be sending that out to you all shortly once I determine the time that works best. So thank you all for participating today. Stay safe and well, and we will talk to you very soon.